think there's anything wrong with meeting up with Ralph. I mean, Ralph and I were on a podcast together. I commend you because you have pretty much raised the bar for all date nights. Honestly, I don't know if Ralph had any ill intent in reaching out to me, but you know what? I'm a concerned citizen. And the people of the United States of Atlanta want to know if Ralph's wife and Dennis are making hot dogs. It's going to be gotten to the bottom of.
Hey y'all, it's me, Tony, and I'm back with some new tea. I recently got some footage that Shmia is actually becoming our mean girl, okay? She went from being one of our new favorites and a real housewife to a real lapdog. And I wanted to dissect it and get into it. Before I do, make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel, and stay tuned for what I'm about to show you. So to start off for Real Housewives of Atlanta Sweet 16, Shmia was definitely a fan favorite in the beginning. She was really wowing you guys by how humble she appeared. You know, she has like a nice home, a rich husband, a beautiful family, and I almost feel like Shmia was on the road to becoming like the head of the show. But these past few episodes of Sweet 16, we're starting to realize Shmia is not as sweet as we may have thought. Now, before I dive into that, I wanted to break down Shmia's history a little bit with you guys. So let's get into that part first. So if you know Shmia has always been in the entertainment industry. She used to actually be a singer, and she was also a dancer for a long time. She was a cheerleader for the Atlanta Falcons, and she also became a cheerleader for the Atlanta Hawks. So Shmia has the history of being in the entertainment. She also did some work on Drumline, I believe, Drumline the movie. However, I couldn't find any snippets of her in it, but apparently she was in it according to her movie credits. But Shmia's first husband, her first wealthy husband, is actually a dude named King Solomon Smallwood Jr. And apparently he's a wealthy millionaire entrepreneur. And according to Shmia, he was super abusive physically during the marriage. I don't have any receipts on that, you know, if he was abusing her. But what I did find out is that they weren't married long. It was like a little of a year or less than Portia and Simon. And Shmia actually was trying to get her prenup overturned during the divorce, but it didn't work out for her. So basically, she wanted some of Solomon's money, and that man wasn't letting up because he had a tight prenup on the marriage. I'm not sure why Shmia wanted the money. Maybe she felt like, you know, it was deserved due to her marriage being toxic, or maybe, you know, that's just what she wanted, his coins, but it didn't work out in her favor. And unfortunately, she had to go back to, you know, making money on her own. Now, a lot of people remember Shmia being brought on by Portia, and during Shmia's like first season on the show, it was when Shmia was actually still married to Cordell, but we didn't really get much out of her. And that may have been because Portia was like barely on the show. When she first got on, they weren't even trying to bring Portia back. So they definitely weren't going to highlight her friendships really. But it was after, when Portia was already divorced, and season 8, that's when we started seeing more of Shmia. And her first scene that was very like noticeable to a lot of viewers is when Shmia went to Kenya's hair care product opening, and Shmia made fun of Kenya's hair products. And why would she do that when Kenya didn't even know Shmia? Is because Shmia was Portia's friend, and Portia and Kenya were not friends. So Shmia brought it upon herself to make fun of Kenya's hairline. And at the time, you know, it may have been a bit funny to some people because Kenya didn't really have like the best light for a lot of people. But if you really think about it, it was kind of low to, you know, bring down someone's business. Like, they're having their opening, you know, you were able to come, you're there at the event firsthand, and you're like making fun of their hair products and calling it water. You're literally making fun of her hair business. To top it off, Kenya actually confronted Shmia about it that same season on a boat. And that's when Portia and Cynthia had that big old fight. But y'all remember when Cynthia kicked Portia in the stomach. But it was in that same season, Kenya confronts Shmia about it. And instead of Shmia saying, yeah, you know what, I didn't have to make fun of your hairline, I don't even know you, Shmia decided to call Kenya Miss America, provoking her, knowing that was the same issue that I think initially started the beef between Portia and Kenya. And Shmia was just like being kind of nasty to Kenya almost. And Kenya's like, well, you can get off my boat. Now, was Kenya overdoing it with getting off the boat? Yeah. But overall, Shmia picked a fight with Kenya first. And that's a bit surprising because people always think that Shmia is this sweet girl, but it comes to be that Shmia just happens to attack anyone who is against Portia. Now let's move on to the next topic with her. So season 9, we understand that Shmia is engaged. She has a generous husband, in her words, aka a wealthy man that she's engaged to. And this is the same season when Kandi, Portia, and Phaedra have their big beef, okay? And somehow in there, Shmia and Kandi have gotten super close, although Kandi and Portia are not close. Now also, Shmia is noticing that Phaedra and Portia are super close, and I'm not sure if it's like jealousy fueled or not, but Shmia actually starts the beef with Phaedra first, okay? Now, I know that may throw some of you guys off, but if you go back and look in previous seasons, Shmia actually started the beef with Phaedra first. Shmia was talking about Phaedra, okay? And Shmia was saying that Phaedra wanted her ex-husband. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but what I do know is you guys had been around each other for how long? I mean, season 8, we saw these two dancing in bikinis together. Okay, you guys were hanging out in Miami. You know, why is it season 9 when Portia and Phaedra are super duper close? Why is it all of a sudden you're talking about Phaedra? The only thing I can get from that is that Shmia was jealous of how close Portia and Phaedra had became, and she did not like it. Shmia even went to the point of telling Portia, oh, don't be friends with Phaedra, and Phaedra doesn't really like you. And she went to telling Sheree how Phaedra wanted her husband, and, you know, a bunch of things about Phaedra being promiscuous in Atlanta. Now, that's when things actually decided to flip, and Phaedra decided to share that, well, in Atlanta, everybody knows that Shmia be effing everyone's husband. Now, at the time, we didn't take any of those rumors serious, right? But here we are in 2025, and some of those rumors just might, allegedly, hear me out, they might have a little bit of truth to it. And I'm going to get into it. Don't worry, it's all going to come together. Just come along with me, okay? So season 10, guys, stay along with me here. Shmia actually gets into it with Eva Marcel, okay? And she's basically calling Eva out for being a LGBT member, okay? And not only does she call out Eva, but she's also calling out Missy Elliott, because she's basically insinuating that Missy Elliott and Eva had a thing going on. And at the time, Eva was very offended because, for one, you don't do that. You don't just throw someone's sexuality out. And on top of that, Missy Elliott is a very public figure, and maybe she didn't want to have that conversation and whatnot. So for you to just say that on a national, highly watched TV show, it was extremely, extremely inappropriate. And Shmia didn't really understand why Eva was even offended. And it just goes to show Shmia doesn't have any depth to her. Just no depth. Like, there's her and Portia, I think they went to the same school together. I don't know where they went, but don't send your kids there. They are not that bright. They say things that could really hurt people, and they don't understand the magnitude of it. Or maybe they do, but they just don't care, I guess. But that's another red flag that we have seen from Shmia. Her outing Missy Elliott and Eva Marcel for their alleged relationship that neither one wanted to talk about, clearly. Now, season 11 and 12, we didn't really get much from Shmia because she was entering motherhood. But season 13, that's when we saw Shmia return as Portia's lapdog, okay? Now, Portia at the time was battling a lot of rumors, a lot of heat between Kenya and Marlo Hampton. This is when she had allegedly slept with Bolo the stripper, and she was basically calling Kenya a liar, even though later, you know, it kind of came out like, yeah, you did do it. But anyway, Portia was very upset with Kenya and also pretty upset with Shmia. I'm sorry, Lord. She was upset with Marlo. And at the time, Shmia was inserting herself into it. She was literally trying to argue with Marlo, and Marlo was paying her dust. I think Marlo paid her dust because Marlo knew you're trying to get a moment on the show and you're trying to have one with me. And Marlo literally paid her dust. But if you guys remember, Shmia was going so hard trying to argue with Marlo at every scene she could get. Mind you, they didn't have an issue. The only issue was Portia had one with Marlo. Yet somehow Shmia manages to make herself a lapdog again. And if y'all remember that same reunion, Shmia was making fun of Marlo for having a lisp. Like, literally. How do you make fun of someone for having, something wrong with the way they speak? Like, is that really funny? I just don't think so. And like I said, Shmia and Portia have a very immature way of beefing with people. They can't have a normal conversation or talk about morals or anything because they don't have any. They like to throw low blows. And that's what reminded me when they actually made fun of Marlo for getting liposuction. Mind you, they all have gotten liposuction before. What's the big deal? But Shmia was making fun of Marlo and was mentioning it. For what? Why are you mentioning Marlo's liposuction? And if you fast forward today, then you know that Shmia actually wants to get lipo done on her back now. And she also had breast implants. So why are you making fun of people for doing things that you want to do? And speaking of low blows, our next one is actually this season, Sweet 16, okay? And the reason why I left out 14 and 15 is because Shmia wasn't there. Portia was gone, so guess what? No Shmia. But anywho, Sweet 16, we got our first sample of Mean Shmia, aka Shamina. Shmia was very nasty to Angela Oakley, okay? Don't get me wrong, Angela is a tough cookie. She's no one to play with, okay? But the way Shmia was coming at Angela was like a little bit overdoing it. But at the time, we gave her grace because, we thought she was this humble, sweet housewife, right? Shmia was making fun of Angela's nose, her plastic surgery, and you have to think about it. I want you guys to dissect it. Almost everyone in Shmia's circle has had plastic surgery done. Okay? Why are you making fun of this woman for having plastic surgery on her nose when literally the 4 people you're friends with in that same room have had so much plastic surgery done? It's like a trending topic right now on how botched they look. So why is that even funny? And why is it funny to tear down another woman on her looks? Like, okay, you can't really go back and forth with her, so you have to lower the elevator to talk about her looks. Shmia, that was pretty low. Not to even mention, the reason why Shmia and Angela even had an issue is because Angela was trying to support Drew when she felt like Drew was being ganged up on by Shmia and Portia at Shmia's birthday party. The same party that Portia was 3 hours late to. Shmia decides to basically confront and question Drew about her relationship with Dennis. And it's just crazy. Like, Shmia, this is your party. Why make it about Portia and Dennis and Drew? This is your party, and your best friend that you're defending and questioning for was 3 hours late to your party. Also, let's not forget, when it comes to shady hookups and whatnot, Portia is the one who said that the reason she got with Simon is because Shmia hooked her up with him. Mind you, Portia said this in the middle of all the heat she was catching for even being with Simon. So Portia literally threw Shmia under the bus for being the messy person to hook up Simon and Portia. Mind you, they all used to hang out together. So Shmia knew Simon's wife. You decided to hook up a woman that you used to hang out with, her husband, with your best friend. Really, Shmia? And you guys claim Shmia is a nice girl? I don't know. And I also noticed Shmia actually making digs at Drew's singing voice. And we actually know Drew to be a real singer and a real actress. And she has a lot of credits as so. She has a beautiful voice. So I don't understand why Shmia was making fun of Drew's singing and basically saying that, Drew can't hit notes that Shmia hits. Well, we actually know Drew as the singer, not really Shmia. And also, I didn't like that Shmia was making fun of the way Angela dresses. She even says that in her after show that they were laughing at how Angela dresses. And Shmia, you don't dress well. Now, this last thing I wanted to speak on is literally coming up in the next episode. I got the little sneak peek from Bravo, and basically, Shmia decides to link up with Ralph. Now, why are you linking up with Ralph? Remember, you guys gave Drew a hard time for working with Dennis. So Shmia decides to link up with Ralph without Drew's knowledge, and they're over here meeting up about a podcast. And guess who Shmia decides to invite to the dinner? Portia, the owner. Okay, so Shmia invites Portia, and they're having an inappropriate conversation with Ralph, in my opinion. They have no business questioning Ralph about Drew's relationship with Dennis. And Portia even stoops so low and goes in her phone and starts showing Ralph messages alleging that, maybe Drew was trying to sleep with Dennis. And all I can think is, Shmia, what does this have to do with you? What does this have to do with you? Dennis is not your baby daddy. They're not even dating. You of all people should be quiet when it comes to sketchy hookups, if they even were hooking up. Dennis and Drew are not hooking up, but let's just say they were. Where is there room for you to talk when you're the one that hooked up your homegirl with your best friend? Like, come be for real. Shmia, you're messy. And to make it even worse, they're over here trying to spill tea to Ralph about Drew, knowing that these two are going through a divorce. And when you're going through a divorce, when you have a divorce, you go through a process called discovery. So any evidence of the other party cheating or doing things that were wrong in the marriage, that can actually benefit or ruin your case. And that could literally make you possibly have to pay money in your divorce or have to give away some of your assets. And they know Drew and Ralph are having a messy divorce. So that just gave me Mean Girl 2.0. Portia and Shmia are the Gretchen and Regina of Housewives, okay? Shmia has had us all fooled, I believe. I think that she came off with a soft demeanor, very humble. But if you even think about it, there's no way Shmia is humble. As soon as she came on this show, she kept telling us how her home was like the second most expensive home sale in the state of Georgia. And every time you see her, she thinks that she can dress, but let's keep it honest. Everyone doesn't like the way Shmia dresses. But she thinks she's dressing nicely because she's wearing labels. And she'll wear the labels so much, it's like overkill. So how are you really that humble? Every time we see you, you're raving about an elevator in your home. Like, who's taking a slow elevator? We know you take the stairs, but you're doing it for the camera. I don't think that Shmia is as humble as she portrayed herself to be. And I also think that her and Portia have a lot of dirt. And I think that's one reason why they maintain their friendship. They're maintaining their friendship because they have dirt on each other. It has to be it. Because all the times that Portia has mistreated Shmia, if you watch one of my other videos I posted about their whole downfall timeline in their friendship, all the things that Portia has done to Shmia, you would think that Shmia would just, all right, not put too much trust in you, cut you off, and not be too emotional about it anymore. But for some reason, Shmia cannot shake Portia. Maybe Portia knows too much of her secrets. Or maybe, just maybe, hear me out, allegedly, these two were super close. Season 13, we kind of got to understand how close Portia gets with her female friends, if you know what I mean. Maybe they're just so close, it's just very hard to remove themselves. Now, I don't know for sure. I'm just putting it out there, allegedly, okay? But there's a reason why Portia and Shmia, they just can't stop being friends fully. Now, y'all get in the comments. Y'all let me know what you guys think about this. Is Shmia, turning from a sweet peach to a bitter peach? Let me know what y'all think, okay? And I will be posting whatever new updates I get. So stay tuned. Like the video, subscribe, and y'all stay safe. Bye.